DGTass. Dumb guys talk about smart stuff.
Just record this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we should just jump right into a subject and then fuck the audience, dude. They gotta fucking listen if they want to get to know us.
Yeah, press play. You'll hear us talk.
Right.
You'll see. We don't know that much, but it might be fun to listen to us.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, then let's just do it. So,
well, I've got the subjects you sent me up here.
I've got the subjects right here plus my notes. So,
do you have the first subject as one percenters?
Yep, the one percenters.
All right, and I heard you were saying you had some interesting things that might surprise me.
Well,
about it.
Yeah, dude, I was basically doing my research, and some of the stuff I was coming up with was like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, like, am I even arguing the right side of this?
Oh, okay, interesting.
Because, for one, I was looking at the tax data from the IRS, and I was surprised to see that the 1% are not only paying the highest percentage of taxes, but they're putting the overall most amount into taxes. Where I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was the middle class. I thought the middle class were paying the higher percentage and paying the higher overall percentage of the total taxes collected.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So
you're saying dollar amount contributed to taxes is much higher? Because I actually saw a pie chart once that showed if the government took all of the 99% money, it wouldn't amount to much as far as, how much the upper 1% or 20% or whatever that pie chart was showing. So it's just like volume of money, it seems like they have so much that there's not a way to tax people that don't have as much to where they're actually even contributing in any way.
So are you saying that... So tell me that again so that I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the 1%...
That they have so much money that that what everyone else has doesn't even add up to anything, really.
I've seen this here, but what you're saying is that the amount of money that the 1% holds on to is far and above and beyond more money than the middle class and the lower class all combined together.
Yeah.
They control a majority of the money out there. That I believe is true.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the amount that they're taxed also makes up the most amount of money that is collected in taxes in dollar amount, and they're paying a higher percentage compared to middle class, lower class.
And do you think a contributor to that is that they have, say, better tax men reporting lesser percent of their income than the middle class does?
Like it's all sham, basically.
Well, almost like, say,
they're playing with numbers.
Playing with numbers, like, they're going to report this much as income, but I've got all this money in a Swiss bank account. I got all this money that I say I'm spending in the business. I've got all this money that I've given to charity, and all these other things that makes their reportable income less. And
so what you're saying is they're making $1 billion a year, but they're only reporting $1 million and getting taxed on.
And I would say that's without any evidence, but that's my conspiracy theory. I guess with a little bit of evidence.
Yeah.
I would say.
Well, I would say that's definitely true. I mean, we know for a fact the more money you make. So we could point out the whole advantage of owning a house. If you own a house, so you've got enough money to where you could buy a house, you could own a house, you get to write off the cost of the interest. So that's a benefit that somebody who owns a house gets that somebody who rents does not get because they can't afford to buy a house.
Yeah.
So we know for a fact that the more money you have, the more breaks you get.
Yeah, and so just there's one step up from, say, somebody renting to somebody owning. They're not reporting what they paid in mortgage on taxes, right? And so I'd say another step up would be a business owner and all the things that they don't report as income because they say it's business expense.
Right. Yeah.
And you even see like guys driving around all the time with a car that's a business.
Right.
car.
It's
I'm doing air
yeah.
quotes.
It's a yeah. I could see that. I could see the air quotes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I used to work for a guy
Mm-hmm.
who basically ran all of his bills, everything that he purchased personally,
Mm-hmm.
his yacht, his brand new Porsche 911,
Yeah.
the insurance on that Porsche 911, because this guy was a reckless kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
His insurance was like $900 a month
Yeah.
on this Porsche. And all of that came out of the business.
Mhm.
And all of it ended up being a tax deduction for the business.
Yeah.
And his income that he took from the business appeared very low.
Mhm.
So I see what you're saying there.
So, I'd say if they made $1 billion, only claimed $1 million, and I'm sure that's not a correct proportion, but just an example, and then what they're taxed that $1 million, the percentage probably would be very high.
Yeah, right. So some of the other things that I was looking at that I thought maybe I was starting to view things a little backwards.
Yeah.
The question is are the poor and the middle class stupid, lazy, fat scroungers?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And say, what I say when they put across politics, say like the Mitt Romney style politics, where they do say everyone that doesn't have money, it's because they're lazy. I agree with that to an extent, but I do think everyone that works by the hour or for a paycheck is not lazy.
Right.
And all those people are underpaid, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree. And that's where the 1% that keeps people down, they find ways not to pay those people.
Right, the workers, the
The
people that are
workers.
actually working.
Yes. And I think there should be that carrot in society. Say, like, if you're homeless and you have the option of, like, trying to get your life on track, trying to go back to work, but in the current market, the only thing is maybe the only place they'll take you maybe is McDonald's, and you might be living better begging on the street than going to working at a McDonald's job.
Right.
Or stealing.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And so if there's that carrot to where if you got yourself straightened up, you went and worked at a factory or a mill, and you made a decent living, you could have a family, you could own a house. I think if there's that carrot, you'll get rid of a lot of those people that they point to as being lazy and poor.
How do you have that carrot though? How do you create that carrot?
I think it's that strong payment of the middle class. And if you go back to, say, like I think the 60s and 50s, that period is a time they point to a really strong economy and a strong unions, a strong middle class. Like there was all those Ford factories building cars, and his viewpoint was you got to pay the people enough to buy a car for your business to be successful.
Right.
And I think that back then there's so many opportunities where you could go to a factory, just get a job to where you had one little thing on the conveyor belt, putting whatever, one panel on the car or something like that as it went by, and you could make a decent living.
Yeah. Now I guess the question is though, what kind of skill is needed for that? And should the business owner have to pay unskilled workers a higher wage to do a job that anybody can do because there's no competition for that job?
Yeah, well, I think that's another thing in our current society is the skilled versus non-skilled, and anybody could do it versus nobody. But to do it, you got to have somebody take 8 hours a day, drive to work, spend their time, beat their body up a lot of times, especially in the manual labor type fields.
Right.
And I mean, like I felt that. I worked construction for about 7 years, and it's like my knees were gone, my back was gone. And you might say, well, all I was doing is pounding nails. Why should I pay you a lot? But I was blowing up my body, putting in my time.
Yeah. Risking yourself because some of it's dangerous work.
Yes.
What about the guys that work at McDonald's?
Yeah, and I mean that just depends on your business.
Because this gets into the minimum wage thing.
Yeah.
You increase minimum wage, you're increasing minimum wage for the McDonald's workers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that just depends on the business. Because say if a business like McDonald's or Walmart doesn't care about the face of their company, then they can have that viewpoint of like these guys are unskilled, anybody can do it. But you go into Walmart, you go up to the cash register, that guy is basically putting out a big first impression or whatever of whether or not this person's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So they're customer service, basically.
Right, yeah. They are the face of the company.
They are the face of the company. And so I think when you say, and I even saw a Fox News segment where somebody said, why should we pay somebody just pounding on a cash register?
Yeah.
But
right.
It's the face of the company. There's a lot of stores that I've gone back to or I haven't gone back to because my experience with a certain checker.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to also is the quality of person you're going to get. So if you're offering more money, you're going to create more competition for that position, and then therefore the crack dog basically that's in there working the front desk or working the register at McDonald's, he's going to get pushed aside by a more qualified person who's willing to do a better job and willing to be the face of that company because they're paying more. But the problem is that if you just randomly or arbitrarily increase minimum wage, then that crack dog who's in that position gets that bump even though he's not deserving of it.
And see, my viewpoint of fixing the economy isn't necessarily a minimum wage bump or a mandatory government type of thing. I think it needs to be more of like the workforce needs to get smarter, and businesses need to get smarter, and not be so greedy that they're taking so much from the economy and making themselves so rich that they're going to run out of customers, basically.
Yeah, because we know that if someone's running a McDonald's, if they own a McDonald's franchise, they're probably pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
The owners of Walmart are, they're jumping off of their diving board into a big pool of money.
Yeah, it's basically Scrooge McDuck.
It's Scrooge McDucks.
In the real
Yes,
world,
yes, they're freaking, they're swimming in gold coins.
Yes.
Because they have so much, and they're laughing at us.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things that I was reading about, it was the qualities of the wealthy, quality of the rich. It was what was it that it said? It said 85% of wealthy people do these things that poor people don't do.
Okay.
And there was a big old long list of it. And, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it was, they every day they make goals for themselves, and then they accomplish those goals. Mm-hmm. They spend, X amount of time networking. They blah blah blah, this and that. There's a whole long list of stuff. So that brought up the question for me was, do you think that it is a personality trait?
I do, and I think there's a basic philosophical thing going on with somebody that's extremely rich and able to take that much money and keep for themselves and justify them having that much. Because I think if I had $1 billion, maybe my worldview would change and I'd be able to keep it. But at the same time, I would have a huge guilty feeling. And say if I had workers that I saw driving home in crappy cars, things like that, having 5 kids or whatever,
right,
and
struggling to
get
family.
by. And I actually worked for a guy that he had a house on a golf course, with a waterfall, massive house, and it was very impressive to me. And then he had a worker that drove a beat up car, talked about paying his kids' medical bills, crappy clothes, and the rich guy just was on that guy all day to work faster.
Yeah.
Had no sympathy.
And so basically that waterfall in his front lawn on the house in the golf course, that probably cost as much money as it would have needed for this guy to save his family from the heartache and fucking misery.
Yes. But this guy's spending it in excess. This guy needs it.
Exactly. Right. So you made a good point, though, or you brought it up, that if you were given $1 billion, if you just all of a sudden had this money, what would you do with it? And my question is if you gave wealth to the poor or to the middle class, people who haven't been used to having this kind of money, do you think that they would be able to maintain wealth?
No, actually, that's an interesting point, because I think there is a level of you needing to work for it as well.
Right. So if they don't work for it, they'll just blow it. They'll basically go out and buy all this frivolous stuff.
And I think you see it in examples of people that won the lottery and died of an overdose not too long later, or the money was just gone.
Or just blew the money, and now they owe taxes because they didn't pay their taxes.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, but I remember being in a business class. They talked about a basic philosophical question of business is, do you believe that there's enough for everyone to have, or do you believe that to have something you have to take it from someone else? And I think the majority of people in that upper 1% have to have that viewpoint of, I got to take it from somebody else to have it.
Right. Well, I mean, technically, isn't that true with capitalism? There's only so much money, and everybody's got it, right? Either you have it, or I have it, or this business has it. So for me to get it, it's got to shift from your pile to my pile, or this guy's pile to my pile.
Well, I think the flip of that is that there's 300 million people in the United States. There's trillions of dollars.
You're saying there's plenty to go around.
There's plenty to go around.
So basically, the guy that's living in a giant house with, a garage full of classic cars doesn't need all that. It's frivolous.
And I'd say my more definition of capitalism is that if everyone starts on a level playing field and goes, if the people that are the best get the most, that capitalism is successful.
Uh-huh.
And I think if you're on,
the question is that what happened?
I don't think so anymore.
How did the people who got rich, how did they get there? It's not because they were better?
Well, there's a lot of factors there. But, and say, for example, there are the self-made people, like your Bill Gates. And I think he had a point to where he was self-made. He started Microsoft and all that. Then all of a sudden he gets to a point where he's one of the richest guys in the world. But then he has Xbox employees wanting to jump off a roof to commit suicide because they're not getting paid enough.
Right.
And I think he reached a point. And that's why I say if I had $1 billion, I don't know how I would be mentally at that point.
Mm-hmm.
If it would be just completely different.
Right, yeah. It's interesting to think about that because also, I mean, obviously it takes something. You have to have some kind of resources to do certain things. And I don't know the story of Bill Gates and how he got started.
Yeah, and see, I've heard the whole thing of starting Microsoft in a garage, things like that.
Uh-huh.
I don't know a lot about him, but he has reached a point and I think this is a real typical point of very rich people, because I think Carnegie and a few others I've heard have reached this point where they're one of the richest in the world. They become kind of generous with the money. Like, kind of seems like on the surface they're being generous with the money.
Right.
But to get that much money, it seems like they had to be very greedy.
Yeah, they had to break some skulls to get there.
Yeah. I think Carnegie is a good example of that as well, because he's known, I think the right word's philanthropist, at the end when they start giving their money away.
Uh-huh.
Later in their life after they become very rich. But Carnegie, to get there, had these steel mills where 1 in 11 people died.
Yeah.
And he had no care about worker safety. He was a union buster, that type of thing.
Yeah.
To get there, but then his legacy is that he was generous because later in his life he started giving money away.
Right. Well, my question too is how did he get started? How did he become the richest man in the world? He had to have some kind of resource to get there. Was he rich to begin with? Was his family rich? Did he have money left down to him? Did he steal it? Did he come over to the Americas and steal land from the Indians? I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's like somehow you had to have some kind of advantage to get there. It's really hard to get to that point without some kind of an advantage.
Well, and I think the infrastructure of the United States is a built-in advantage. Obama even made this point. Say, like, you build a big company and you're shipping stuff everywhere. The roads and stuff are already there.
Right.
You didn't build the roads yourself.
Yeah. You're taking advantage of an infrastructure that's already there for you.
By people that came before us, tax money and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the infrastructure, like, I know there's a big boom in infrastructure after World War II.
Yeah.
To get the U.S. out of debt and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, this is one of the big arguments that I have with people that say they don't want to pay taxes, and I ask them. I say, well, okay, if you don't want to pay taxes, then who's going to fix your roads?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to freaking run your prisons? Who's going to do all this stuff? And they're like, well, I don't need to do it. The road's already there.
Yeah.
Well, no shit, motherfucker. Who put the road there? The fucking hard-earned money paid into taxes put that fucking road there. Okay. That's why you can drive on that road. That's why you can drive to work and run this business that you're running or whatever it is you're doing.
And, I mean, the guy that you would say is just sitting there holding a slow and stop sign, or the guy just dumping gravel. The guys that you would put down, they saying you shouldn't need to pay that much money are the ones that put it there.
Right. They're the ones that are making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Those go away, and then your ability to earn money goes away.
Yes.
Your ability to get rich goes away.
Yeah, that's my viewpoint, is that the 1%, the fuel of their wealth is people.
Yeah, I mean, probably 99% of their customers are the 99%, not the 1%.
Yes.
So not only are they keeping down their customer, they're keeping down the people that built the infrastructure to make what they have possible.
Well, and that's the thing. Who of the 1% shops at Walmart or eats McDonald's food?
So we're still on the 1%. So I was going to ask the question now is, how do you think we can fix this problem?
Yeah, I think that's important because you can talk forever.
Right.
Never have a solution.
Yeah.
But I just think like you do the same thing. You go back to the period of time where it was strong, and back then it was a strong middle class. And they say, I saw the article where they inflated the numbers, and the buying power minimum wage at that time, you translate that to now, it'd be like $22 an hour.
Whereas now the minimum wage is, you know, 8 or 9 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and with $22 an hour, I mean, you can definitely live in an apartment, you know, have a potential to have a family, you know, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Potential to buy a house.
How does that affect, though, the economy altogether? You know, if you raise minimum wage to, say, $22 an hour, how is that going to affect everything else? Are prices going to go up? Is that rent that right now is affordable for someone who makes $22 an hour going to go up to? Is basically inflation going to reflect what the minimum wage is, to the point where minimum wage at $22 an hour is going to be exactly the amount of buying power you had when it was $8 or $9 an hour?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. But I just recently read about a town that made their minimum wage $15 an hour, and people raised all those concerns about businesses say they'd have to lay people off, price of everything's going to go up, and it's just the exact opposite happened. Like, business boomed in that town to where those businesses were hiring more people that said they'd have to lay people off.
Right. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got more buying power in the town. They buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Those businesses reap the benefits of it.
I think with current prices, people are doing things like cutting their own hair, not going out to eat, not staying at motels, camping in a tent instead.
Yeah.
And all these things. And when those things start thriving, when people can do that again, then there's all these business opportunities. Like, you can own a motel or a hotel and make really good money, rather than it being like a slumlord place where people that just got their welfare check will stay for a few days till they run out of that money.
Yeah. I was reading up on ways to tax the rich without penalizing the middle class and the poor. And one of those ideas was to increase the tax rate on stuff that rich people buy. So, kind of like a luxury tax. If you're buying a mansion, you're going to pay a higher tax on that. And if you're buying a yacht, things that the middle class aren't going to buy.
Yeah.
These are things that you're going to buy as a multi-billionaire, because you've got so much money you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, and I think the problem with there is, like, you got to set that line, like, what is excessive. And I know the Obama administration has done that a lot, and a lot of times their line is like $450,000 a year, and I think that line's kind of low.
You think that's low?
Yeah, $450,000 a year. I think because it's the 1%ers are the type of people making $20 million a year.
Right.
You know, that type of level to me.
Yeah, but again, I mean, think about what $450,000 a year is. I mean, that's a shit load of money.
It is, but going back again to say like the 50s and 60s, say my grandpa bought his house for what he made in a year.
Yeah.
And so you translate that. There's a lot of areas where houses are.
So you're saying that if we got to a point where, you know, everybody was making $450,000 a year and they could turn around and go buy a house with that and pay it off in a year, that would be reasonable.
Well, I'd say, like, you're not getting over your head on your loan. You're not, because I think so many families that, you know, working by the hour or working by a salary or whatever, they buy a house, they got their kids, they got all this stuff, but they're one little medical bill or something like that from it just all falling apart.
Yeah. I know exactly about, like, we're dealing with that right now.
Yeah.
You know, we've got tons of medical bills from the baby, from the new baby, from going to the hospital and stuff, and that is a hardship.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on freaking medical.
Oh, that's another day.
That's another day. That's another show.
And I'm actually reading an article about that. That's kind of making me really interested.
Well, I'm angry about that. I am angry about the fact that it costs so much and that it is so damaging. And just to add just a little piece, because I've got a little snippet. So my wife called about a bill that she had, and she's like, "This is a lot. Can I make payments? Blah blah blah." And they said no, and they said it's too bad that you have insurance, because if you didn't have insurance, we could cut this bill in half, and you would only have to owe half of it. But because the insurance is involved, we have to bill you at the insurance rate, which means the amount you owe is twice as much as if you didn't have insurance.
Wow.
So yeah, that's ridiculous. But we'll save that for another show.
Yes. But that is a tie-in. I mean,
it's definitely a tie-in because that affects the middle class and the poor. If you're rich, you don't worry about those medical bills.
Yeah.
You don't worry about. You don't even need fucking insurance if you're rich.
You could have a doctor on staff for you.
Right.
At that level.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jackson did.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if my wife didn't have insurance, the cost of that bill would have been a lot less because they would have billed at their rate, not at the insurance rate. So if you're rich, you've got plenty of money to pay for this stuff, and you don't need to have insurance, so you're not getting billed at the insurance rate. So you're getting your medical for cheaper, even though you've got the money to pay for it.
Yes.
So, and that's frustrating. And I did just a little bit of research. I was looking at salaries, and one of the things I wanted to pull up was like the discrepancy in salary. So the salary data that I got was for a CEO. The salary range for a CEO is $400,000 a year to $1 million a year, with the median being $750,000 a year. And that brings me back to that whole $450,000 line.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the type of data that Obama's administration based that on.
Yeah, and you're thinking that should be raised, but here's my point: is that I bet you if we looked at, the median salary, actually we can easily do that. I think for our area, the median family income is under $50,000 a year. If that's the median family income in this area, and somebody comes into town and they're making $450,000 a year, they're making 9 times the amount of the median family.
Yeah.
That to me qualifies for being wealthy. That qualifies to me for where maybe they should pitch in just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be treated like they're rich. Now, if minimum wage is increased and that median family,
the two start to come closer.
Exactly, yeah. So then I would say, okay, yeah, bump it up now, because now the regular family, their median salary is now $150. Well, now $450 doesn't seem like it's that much more. It's not that much of a discrepancy. So now maybe bump it up to $1 million or whatever it may be. But there's got to be some kind of even ground there.
Yeah, and for example, on these types of salaries, like this $450 to $1 million, I worked at a past place where we used to keep an eye on things like that because the pay was public when it's a publicly traded company. And there would be things like the CEO getting $1 million salary, then $15 million in company stock options as a bonus.
Yeah.
And then maybe another $3 million cash bonus at the end of the year based on the company's performance.
And this goes back to the beginning of our conversation: is how does this tie into taxes? Are they taxed for that?
Yeah, are they taxed for the $1 million? And they have 18 million other job-based pay that they got.
Yeah, I mean, we know bonuses are taxed, but at what rate? And what about the stock options?
Stock options might not be.
Right, until they cash those out. And they can cash those out very slowly.
Well, and they also have enough power to manipulate the system to where, say, like if they're ready to sell their stock, they could do something like a company purchase of stock, bump up the stock price, then sell.
Yeah.
That's the type of power that those people have to make money that other people don't.
Right, that me and you can't do.
No.
Did you have any more points you wanted to make on the 1%?
I think we're pretty good as far as, like, I probably need to do research to go farther.
Yeah. We don't want to do too much research because then we'll be too smart.
Yeah.
Then we wouldn't be qualified for this
The whole thing is that we're
podcast.
supposed to be dumb guys.
Exactly.
And there's a point where you can graduate to smart guys talk about smart stuff.
Yeah, right. Well, that'll be the next podcast.
Yeah, that's the podcast the 1%ers do.
Yeah, exactly. We don't qualify for that.
No.
All right. So should we move on to our next segment?
Sure. Was it aliens?
It is aliens. Yeah. The what conspiracy? So when I did my research on this, and I could talk forever about aliens.
Yeah.
Actually, interestingly enough, last night I sent a text to one of our coworkers, and because I was reading a book to my daughter, one of her nighty night books, super little kid book.
Yeah.
But up in the corner of the very last page, when this kid is going to sleep, is this little green figure. And it looks like an alien.
Yeah.
It looks like an alien, yeah. I can't show you a picture of it right now, but so I texted it over to Phil, and I was like, hey, take a look at this. What do you think about this? And he's like, that's interesting. And then he texted me this morning. He's like, hey, I was watching this kitty cartoon, and it was all about aliens, Area 51, Hangar 18, He's like, it's stuff that's way over these kids' minds,
Yeah.
way over their heads, but adults are going to understand what they're talking about. And so my conspiracy to him was, is this, is somebody trying to desensitize children to the existence of aliens?
Yeah, and that's interesting because I've often wondered that about my childhood and the era I grew up in. Because movies I watched were E.T.
E.T.
Yes.
Right.
Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
Star Wars.
Right.
And then Short Circuit even. Kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just seemed like they all had that conspiracy theory, alien type
There was
stuff tied in.
Explorers
Yeah.
where they meet the little
Yeah,
kid
that one.
aliens and they're all friendly and
And what was the one where the guy played the video game and the aliens came and got him? Oh, Fly the Navigator, is that what it's called?
yes,
Is
yeah.
that what it's called?
Wait, Flight of Navigators, that's the one where the little kid,
Okay, no, this one was more like an adult playing a video game.
but that's another one.
That's another one. It is.
Yeah.
And I often wonder that, like, our age group seems really fascinated with this subject, but it was really in entertainment back when we were growing up.
Right. And it's funny how it shifted too, because it used to be, if you go back to like the 50s and stuff like that, and building up, the aliens were always the bad guys.
Yeah.
It was always, the pod people or whatever, or, the thing, it was the bad guys.
Yeah.
But then it turned out to be, now they're all cuddly and fuzzy little creatures that,
That is true because you go back to the sci-fi of the 50s. Say like the Day the Earth Stood Still. I'm not positive. That might be 50s, 60s. I'm not positive what it was.
Right.
Things Day the Earth Stood Still. A lot of the Twilight Zone episodes, things like that. They're scary and they're conquering.
Yeah. They're dominating.
Yeah, the
humans.
Orson Welles one too.
Oh yeah, War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds.
Yeah. So I was just I just thought that was an interesting point to bring up.
Well, a lot of conspiracy theorists might point to something happened. Like we're being indoctrinated to accept them.
Well, and that's kind of the thought. It's like now, instead of being afraid of them, which we have been for the past, or for the first 50 years when they really became popular and in everyday. I mean, from the 1940s on, when UFO sightings were becoming big, and then eventually you had the alien abductions starting to happen. Those scenarios happening. Which is very interesting, because people write those off. People write those off all the time as being either hoaxes or people were dreaming or, weird things like that. And I just find that hard to believe. Mm-hmm. Don't you agree that that's kind of hard to believe?
Well, I was scrolling through some of the documents that came out with the Project Blue Book recently.
Yeah.
It's just number one impression is there's so much here that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's months worth of reading there.
Oh, yeah.
And and I don't know if I really believe in the whole philosophy of like where there's smoke, there's fire, type of thing. Because sometimes I think that means people are digging deeper because there's nothing there.
Right.
But I think it's just really overwhelming, the amount of sightings, the amount of everything, to just dismiss it.
I agree.
I mean, something to say this many people are having the same type of mental condition or dream, or whatever.
Well, and that's what I got drawn to was the alien abduction reports, and there's some out there that are really hard to dismiss as one hoaxes, and they're all so similar to each other. Two, you can't say that it was a one-off hallucination or a dream, because why is everybody having the same dream?
Well, and that's the thing. I've had intense dreams and things like that, but I knew what it was. Yeah.
Well, exactly. Well, I've had some intense dreams too. And we're slipping into the next topic, but I might not know what they are, but I know what they're not.
Yeah.
Or I have a sense about me. So, anyways, back to the alien topic. I wanted to bring up some of those alien abductions, and obviously there's some that are really famous, and one of the top ones is the Barney and Betty Hill incident.
And that was the real early one, right?
That was for 1961. It was like, that's what the classic alien abduction scenario kind of built off of. Everybody started having very similar experiences to this. And how much do you know about Betty and Barney Hill?
I know I've probably heard a summary of it, but not too much.
Well, basically, it's, to start off with, you've got a black man and a white woman.
Oh, yes.
Married.
Yeah.
In 1961, so obviously, this is pretty close to an era when that might not be acceptable.
Yeah. What part of the country they live in? Wasn't it like Carolina, East Coast?
They're on the East Coast. I think they're up towards New England. I can't
Okay.
remember exactly where they're from. I know that they're taking a trip up north. I think they're going to like Vermont or up to Maine or something like that. And that's where this all took place. And it might have been on their way home. But basically, they experienced a classic UFO sighting and then an abduction scenario where both of them, both individuals had a similar experience together. Now, the first, the skeptics would say that basically they're making it up, right? But why? Why would they make up a story about being abducted by aliens? They're already, at a risk of being persecuted because of he's black, she's white, they're married kind of thing, right? So why would they draw more attention to them? That wasn't necessary. And two, okay, let's say that they hallucinated it, they dreamed it, it didn't really happen. They both had the same freaking experience.
Yeah.
So how do the two of them have the same exact experience?
Yeah, definitely.
So,
and the case I always make is say, like, this individual case, you can play devil's advocate in a few ways, but there's so many of these types of cases.
Right, there are so many of them. I mean, one of them is that they were being followed, so they're driving down the coast or whatever, and they're seeing this UFO follow them, and skeptics say it was the moon, it was Venus. Come on, dude. How many times have you driven down the road and saw the moon or saw Venus and went, oh, that must be a UFO?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, how old were these people? 30s, 40s?
Yeah, I think they were in their 40s.
So how many times did they see the moon at night
right.
at that point?
Yeah.
Thousands.
Was this the first time they ever saw a fucking full moon?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Yeah. So to play it off as, oh, they just mistakenly thought that, a bright star was a UFO following them as they drove around. That's a ridiculous excuse to not investigate this any further. And then there's a few more that I wanted to talk about, because alien abductions I think are pretty interesting, and we could go pretty deep into the abduction scenario. Yeah,
and I mean there are all those Nevada type cases. There's Area 51. I feel kind of undereducated on individual cases.
Yeah,
I know that. And there's a lot of things I've seen lately that, with CGI being out there, say like the alien that's supposedly questioned by like Brazilian police.
Right.
Like that's to me looks like CGI.
Or well, it looks like I mean nowadays any kid can take their cell phone, they could take their iPhone, and they can go make a movie with it, and they can probably do some pretty impressive things with it. Pretty impressive effects. Yeah, and
I like shows that kind of go into these things. I've watched a few. And I remember seeing one that's really interesting about Area 51, how they just drove up to it, saw a bunch of lights, were approached by people in a Jeep.
Yeah.
And it was all on the show.
Right.
So definitely something secret's going on there, aliens, who knows what. But that's good, very well be military. But as far as these abduction cases, it's just overwhelming, because I tried to read into it, and I went into those Project Blue Book cases, and there's so many. That's my first impression.
Yeah.
Where I don't have that many individual examples.
Well, I've read some books. I think Bud Hopkins, he wrote a book about alien abductions. He actually followed a case over years of a lady who was being abducted by aliens, or claimed to be being abducted by aliens, and had several stories that expanded over a certain amount of time. Yeah. And I read that book, and it scared me, because some of the things that they talk about are things that I've kind of experienced myself in a way, like just like the whole sleep paralysis thing, or waking up, and feeling that there's someone in the room. Again, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves into the next segment, but yeah, there are so many of those cases where a similar story is told, and it's hard to believe that all of these people are just making it up for no reason. I mean, look at the what was it, the Phoenix Lights. How many people saw that happen? There were hundreds of people, hundreds of witnesses that saw that. There were people who saw this fly over their head and realized that it was a larger than normal object that was silently flying over their head. How do you come out and try to blame that on flares?
Yeah.
Flares don't fly over your head as a giant object.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of descriptions I've heard is they'll see an object sitting there and all of a sudden it either goes away so fast they can hardly comprehend it or it just disappears.
Yeah. Or it goes from one part of the sky to the other part of the sky that, it would be hard to determine.
Which would kind of point to, say, like even though it's a poor movie, but like the Indiana Jones Crystal Skull explanation, is that they're interdimensional type.
Right,
things.
They're going in and out of time, in and out of our dimension.
And say, like, instead of, like, because we have the whole problem of traveling, light speed, but still not going very far, as far as how big the universe is. But it seems like if you're going to travel the universe, you got to have that type of a technology.
Yeah. Well, I think we would be horribly arrogant as a species to believe that that we know everything about physics and the universe and what's possible and what's not.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into, say, if there's these communications, then let's assume it's a higher beings. How would they communicate with us? Does it make sense that these weird, kind of spread out, not overly accepted by society sightings are going on? Is that the way that the higher being or a higher group of beings would communicate with us?
That's a good question. I don't know. I like to think of it. I've always thought kind of this way. Is that they wouldn't be like us. They wouldn't act like humans would. Because a lot of people say, well, we're humans. We go off and cage animals. We tag them. We toss them back in the wild after poking them and probing them and all that stuff. But I like to think that if there is this higher intelligence out there, that they're more intelligent than us, more compassionate than we are, with an understanding, maybe more of an understanding of the workings of the universe, the workings of life, and that maybe they would be more sensitive to the trauma that something like that might cause.
We'll say if they just appeared on Earth, what would happen if they had the same ambition that we did? And say, like we were just talking about the 1%. What if it was to acquire money? Yeah. Or what if it was power? Right. A higher being could just have it.
They've got the technology.
And if you're a race, a being, it's hard to come up with the right word to say, but like it's a being that sort of things aren't important to you. Something else is. Mm-hmm. Say like you come from somewhere else where riches like what we have are nothing. Right. Then what would your ultimate goal be in communicating with us? Yeah, right.
It would be connecting one part of the universe to another part of the universe,
say like the person you choose to talk to might not be the President of the United States.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It could be.
Yeah, take me to your leader doesn't matter because our primitive structure, societal structure, doesn't matter to them.
Well, they might be sitting there looking at, well, this guy's elected by, rich people that, ran campaigns for him. Right. Stuff like that. We don't acknowledge that this person is the person we want to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they're just grabbing random people.
Or people that are ready.
Yeah. People that, that's the thing. Perhaps, and it's been said a lot that they communicate telepathically. Mm-hmm. Perhaps these people have telepathically sent messages to them. Yeah. Maybe they just don't realize it, but they have.
Yeah, and see, like this is kind of a theory I have kind of in its infancy. But I want to do more research on it, is the whole thing of the higher power. How would they talk to us? And some interesting tie-ins that I've come up with that it might be interesting what your opinion is. What about things in the past like Moses and the burning bush? Yeah. Or Jesus. Or John's vision. Mm-hmm. Or even things like on the pyramids. Yeah. Things that you see. Is in their interpretation, like we say aliens, do they say God? Right. Could it be these higher beings who communicated to these people at this time with what they needed to know? Mm-hmm.
Well, this definitely goes into some ancient alien stuff. Yeah, and people have absolutely tied all of these stories from the Bible to that's what they thought it was when they were there back in ancient days when they. If I went back in time and showed them a cell phone, mm-hmm. what would they think I was? Would I be a god? Would I be a prophet or whatever?
Well, yeah, and for example, that John's Revelation has this point where it's talking about flying scorpions and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people say, well, what if he saw a helicopter?
Right.
How would he describe it
Mhm.
in that
Or-
day's language?
Exactly. Or the burning chariot in the sky or whatever.
Uh-huh. Is that a UFO?
Is that a UFO?
Is that these higher beings communicating, saying, I'm God. I'm directing you in this direction.
Mhm. Not even saying I'm God,
Yeah.
just giving them direction, and the primitive Earthlings accept that as God because that's what they've come to know God to be.
Mhm.
God is an all-powerful being that guides them
Mhm.
to do something.
And it would be the same for us. I mean, if they're telepathic or whatever, it's almost like a godlike ability to us.
Exactly, it is. That's exactly what we would think it was.
Mhm.
So perhaps all of religion that humans believe is really just aliens communicating with us from
Yeah.
another dimension, another plane of existence that we have yet to discover, understand, or even realize is there.
Yeah, and I think that goes into something else, which I've kind of put some thought into, is are aliens religious people, things like that, looking at the same things, coming to different conclusions.
That's an interesting concept.
Mhm.
Are aliens religious? Do they believe in God, you mean?
Yeah.
Or a higher power?
Hmm.
See, and I would think no, because they're more connected. Well, and again, I don't know, but I'm just saying that my picture of them is that they have a higher understanding of the universe and how it works.
Hmm.
And because they have that higher understanding of how the universe works, that's how they have these additional abilities. That's why they can speak to us telepathically. This is why they can travel, thousands of light years across the galaxy, while we can't even barely fly to our moon and back.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We don't know the true definition of this higher being.
Mm-hmm.
And say, for example, if there was a being interdimensional, immortal, that basically takes a step back from our existence, and say we talked about telepathic, what if they had the telepathic power to create or affect things?
Mm-hmm.
If that type of being stepped onto Earth, talked to Moses, that would be God.
Right. That's exactly what it would be, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the definition of what God is.
Yeah, and it would be exactly what he described.
I've often thought about these UFO or alien abduction scenarios and why they're so similar to each other, and why there's no necessarily any physical evidence. What if it's all happening on a psychological level?
Mm-hmm.
What if the aliens are not abducting you physically,
Yeah.
but they're abducting you mentally, your astral body or whatever you want to call it, your soul, and taking your consciousness off on this adventure.
Yeah.
And perhaps your mind can only accept it as they're physically taking you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. It'd be so nice if we could better define what these beings are, like what level. Because like you talked about, if it is all mental, they might be a being to where the physical things don't matter to them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
And what if it is us dead, or, I mean, there's so many possibilities.
You mean our
ancestors.
human ghosts,
Yeah.
human souls.
Yeah.
Yeah, communicating with us. Maybe that is the next level.
Mhm.
When we die, that's how we get there.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is these aliens, I'm doing air quotes again, are not coming from another planet or another galaxy or another universe. They're actually coming from the next plane of existence.
Yeah,
for
and
humans.
and for me, it's like we have all these experiences, all these sightings, all these supposed abductions, but we don't have anything that really nails down what
they
level
are.
they play on.
Right.
What are they? I mean, you got the little green men
Right.
type of things.
Mhm.
Who knows if a body's freaking buried under Area 51, like Independence Day says.
Uh-huh.
But as far as I know, we just don't have a well-defined explanation of what they are.
I agree. We don't. So I guess that brings us to the question: would you, if you had the opportunity, would you want to know? And by saying that, by asking that question, would you want to know? Meaning, would you want to be face to face with these aliens? Would you want to experience the alien abduction scenario.
Yeah, my question is, could my body handle it?
What if it's not your body?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Would I die, or what if it's in a dream?
Mm-hmm.
But then, from then at that point, do I become that crazy person that everybody says, you're that nut that saw the aliens?
I guess you would be.
You would be.
To a certain...
So you'd have to abandon, like, your acceptance in society, and, things like that.
But just because you've had these kind of experiences doesn't mean you have to do that. You have to just be the nutcase on the corner begging for money now.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, there's a lot of, in those shows, like Ancient Aliens and stuff, people that say they saw them aren't necessarily all homeless people.
No. But they're viewed upon in a certain, a certain way.
Yeah.
They're not completely accepted in society, perhaps.
So you'd have to accept the stigma or whatever that would come along with it.
But I guess you would be the one that was right, though.
You would.
Right? Because you saw it. You experienced it.
And you know what? I think I would be a person who would say, yes, I want to, because a lot of times in my past, I've accepted to try and search for the truth.
Uh-huh.
I think that's why I never did well in college and things like that, because when I was taught something, I'd be like, yeah, but...
Right.
Type of
just
approach.
because this is what everyone's doing doesn't mean that this is right.
Yeah. And I think I don't care as much about what everyone's doing as some people.
So I've had some experiences myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I've for a while I kept it close to myself. Didn't tell a lot of people because I was afraid of what people would think. They'd think I was crazy or whatever. But I did a lot of research into the astral projection, thing, and I've had several experiences of astral projection. Most people would think or would say that I was crazy or I was, dreaming or whatever, but, I've experienced these things firsthand, so I know that there's something beyond what we see right in front of us. Our perception of walking around every day and going to work, and coming home and eating dinner and watching TV or whatever it is we're doing. There's something beyond that.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, whether it's, a second level of consciousness or an afterlife or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's the thing. I think I've gone over maybe some of the experiences I've had. The majority of them, I'd say, were happened when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've talked about that some in the past, just talking to each other about how things like that seem to happen to younger people.
Yeah,
like
because
children and things like that.
Because our minds are more open to it.
Mm-hmm.
We're less, conditioned by society.
Yeah.
So we're more willing to think about that kind of stuff. I don't know if I would want to be abducted by aliens. Like,
yeah, see, like if you say abducted, if
abducted is a negative word.
It
isn't
is,
it?
but I feel it's like I came face to face with one.
So basically, what we want to say is, would you like to have a close encounter?
Yeah, a close encounter. Come face to face, have a conversation. That would be
Right.
something. The thing is, what if he's telepathic and blows my brain up over a conversation?
Yeah. Or what if he just wants to come by and say, "Hey, we're here.
Yeah.
I know you're here."
You got 3 questions.
Yeah.
That would be pressure. That would be real.
That would be a lot of pressure. I don't know. I think I'd like to take a ride on their spaceship. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool.
But it's scary. It's also very scary. Like to think about. That's the thing. You gotta get through the fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually the thing that I learned from the astral projections too. Is that you've got to get beyond the fear of it, because just knowing that there is a being out there that can show up at any time, can be in your bedroom at night, that knows what you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. It is. It's just something out of your control.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's out of your control. But do I want to know? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to know.
Yes.
So it's like I gotta weigh those two things out. Do I want to know more than I want to be afraid?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and maybe a future question for a podcast is, what 3 questions would you ask?
Yeah.
And give them the opportunity.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you ask them? What would you want to know from the aliens? You got 3 questions.
Yeah. Or whatever, if somebody had all the answers, whatever being it is.
Yeah, right.
what would you ask?
Yeah, interesting. All right, should we go to our next segment?
What do we got?
So this is the down the rabbit hole segment.
Okay.
And we chose dreams.
Oh.
But I didn't really go down the rabbit hole. In the in the sense that.
Yeah, I'd say I went down the rabbit hole more on 1% and stuff.
Yeah, me too.
But we could just change this to talking about dreams.
Yeah. Well, so I'm gonna tell you. I know I already told you this, but I'm gonna tell you for the audience the ESP dream that I had the other day.
Okay.
So so I had a dream, and it was fairly insignificant. It wasn't like a great things. Many things happened in this dream, and it was all fairly mundane. Didn't really mean much, but I was. I needed a cabinet. I needed, I needed something, some kind of cabinet or shelving for something, and I don't know what I needed it for. But in my dream, I saw my dad's cabinet. It's an old cabinet. It's probably 20 or 30 years old. It's got a glass case on the top and then wooden cupboards on the bottom. And it's where my dad puts all of his model airplanes. My dad builds model airplanes, and this is where he encases them so that we don't break them. Yeah. As a kid, that was always the big fear, that we'd break my dad's model airplane and he would get mad.
Yeah.
So in my dream, I needed a case like that, and I saw this old case, and I was like, oh, I thought about it for a second. I was like, I can't take that. That's my dad's case. It's got his model airplanes in it. I can't touch that. I'm not supposed to touch that. And that was pretty much it. I moved on. I woke up and that was it. Didn't even think about it after that until the next day when I talked to my mom on the phone, and she's talking about going to IKEA and going shopping. And the moral of that story is that she told me she bought my dad a new case to store all of his model airplanes. And it's pretty small, pretty insignificant, but there's obviously a connection there.
Yeah.
Like, I randomly had a dream about the case that my dad keeps his model airplanes in, and my mom the next day tells me she just bought him a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anytime you get like a premonition type thing, and it seems to happen a lot in dreams, and at least to me and like a lot of people I talk to, is that something happens directly related to the dream later, and it really makes you wonder, where do dreams come from?
Yeah, what, like, it's not warning me, it's not telling me about anything, but perhaps it's just like a memory that I had from another life or an alternate reality. Maybe we've all lived this life before and we're just going around in this loop over and over again.
Yeah. Well, one question I've had, say, like, we're very linear. Like, we know what's happened, but like 5 seconds from now, I can't tell you what's going to happen right now in our certain part, in our consciousness. And our bodies work that way. It seems like our brains work in that way. Mm-hmm. But what if in our dreams we kind of leave those?
What if reality isn't linear, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it was basically what I'm saying. Is, do you have a plane of thought that's outside of that linear thing, to where time doesn't matter?
Right.
And so if you think about something, you could be thinking about yourself as 70 years old or 5 years old. Almost like, say, like the Indian 2001, where the guy's all of a sudden the same age, like all these different ages all at once.
Yeah. So basically our reality is like a Pulp Fiction, like a Quentin Tarantino movie, where time doesn't matter. You can go back and forth.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Our brain might be tied in and working chronologically, but maybe not our consciousness.
Yeah, right. It just makes you wonder. And this is another thing that leads me to believe that there's more beyond what we see.
Yeah,
our reality, our perception of what's going on is just a small piece. There's got to be something else out there, because those things don't make sense. It's not just a coincidence.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if you have this experience, but when I have a dream like that, it's not necessarily like a narrative. It's like a scene. Like, you see a scene and maybe something will happen, but it's not like you understand it when you wake up again. It's like a narrative story. Well,
that's exactly what this dream was. It was like, it made no sense. It was kind of like I was thrown into a little scenario for a very short amount of time, but the key piece to that was the shelf. Yeah. The shelf that I knew was my dad's, that I knew I couldn't take.
And didn't we both have dreams where we both dreamed that we'd be working together again, and it happened?
We did, yes. I had a dream probably 6 months, maybe even longer than that,
Mm-hmm.
before you started working with me.
Uh-huh.
And in that dream, so just a little history. We used to work together.
Yeah.
Then we went separate ways. We're working at different places. And now we're working together again.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a dream that we were working together again, but it almost felt like I was having a dream about the past.
Yeah.
But in that scenario, it didn't look like the past.
Mhm.
It looked like it was the future,
Yeah.
really. It looked like where I was working now, everything was the only difference was you were there. And it was like, it was normal. But then when I woke up, I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, Heath doesn't work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had experiences where we talked about just a scene of like I saw myself sitting at the desk looking at a certain file. I kind of looked up and you were back behind me. It's kind of the same exact layout as it was. And when it happened for about 5 minutes, I'm just sitting there going, like, this is my dream.
You're
right
just
now.
you're just spinning around in deja vu.
Yeah. Basically, this is my dream happening right now, and I'm gonna go look back, and there you are. Look back. I'm looking at the same file that I saw, and with the post-it note right there. Right.
Yeah.
I saw it, and then then it was over.
And then it's normal.
And
Everything's
it's
back to normal.
It's just extremely strange experience of like I dreamed these 5 minutes.
Right.
And it comes to pass.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually giving me chills just talking about it because
Yeah.
it's like, it's powerful,
Uh-huh.
you know? Like, it just almost is just proof.
Yeah. Do you ever have a feeling like in those moments that like you're tied to that past moment?
Kind of, yeah. It's like,
I kind of do. Like almost like I'm almost. I don't know how to explain it, but almost like I'm in the consciousness of that person back then that dreamed it.
yeah, right. This is a very Matrix-y kind
It
of
is.
feeling.
It is. I remember there's another time when I was really young, maybe in the range of about 6 to 8 years old, and I had a dream to where I saw a group, like a room full of kids, and like an adult was leading it, and they said a certain thing, and we were playing a certain game. And probably about a week later, it happened. And I think that's my earliest memory of that, and it was the same feeling of like these few minutes passing, I'm in my dream, and then it passed.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me so strongly that I still remember it from, I was probably between 6 to 8 years old.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I had read an article once, and I was hoping I would be able to pull it up real quick, about how deja vu felt.
Mhm.
And it was interesting how it described it, and I just don't remember right now.
Yeah, I remember seeing an article that kind of tried to scientifically explain it, but I think it kind
Right.
of explained it in a way if you feel deja vu in the moment, and I don't think I've experienced that, but it basically saying events happen so fast that the speed your brain processes them doesn't quite catch up.
Yeah, it's
So
like
you-
your brain is slowing down.
It is. It's like you see event A, B, and then like event C happens so fast you don't take it in, so your brain kind of goes A, B, C again.
Uh-huh.
So you go, oh, deja vu, A, B again.
Yeah, right. I've heard you explain that perception before as well.
Mhm.
I read something else that actually described the feeling that you get when you have deja vu,
Yeah.
and it was a pretty interesting description that I thought was pretty good.
Do you almost? I think what I'm trying to say there is it's almost like that in a dream state again when it's happening to you again.
Yeah, like you are in the dream.
Like almost out of body. Like my body's moving the same way it happened in the dream, but I have no control.
Right. Yeah. Oh, puppet master shit.
Yeah, almost like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. It'd be interesting to be able to tap into that deeper. So what I'm saying is that we have these feelings randomly,
Hmm.
but what if we can consciously tap into it and even control these feelings, the deja vu, the dream, tapping into an old dream
Hmm.
like that. Because that old dream that you had obviously was tapped into the future.
Yeah, in some weird way.
Yeah.
And almost it also say like if you tried to rationalize it and say more of a just a rational explanation, is that maybe you do have some part of your brain that can kind of think into the future, and you can kind of put together how things are going to unfold,
Mhm.
and it's no big surprise that it unfolds that way,
Right.
which I guess is a more a reasonable, what might be considered a reasonable explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when I play the devil's advocate of it being a super time travel-y type of experience.
Right. But the thing is that I don't think there's any way without having more knowledge to even think of the possibilities of the future and to get a scenario down to such an exact example of what happens to where you would get that feeling of, well, this is the experience I thought about. This is identical for this moment, what I had thought about.
Yeah,
or
and see,
dreamt about.
when this happened to me, that certain experience, I wrote something on a Post-it, and I wrote exactly.
Right.
I was in the middle of writing it on the Post-it when it started.
Right. And it was all just came flushing through you.
Yeah, and it's like, I just don't think like consciously I have that type of ability.
Right.
To say like I could predict, say I think this team might win the World Series because I think they're good, and if it happens, it's not necessarily means that I time travel. But something that specific is I know what file's in front of me, I know what desk I'm sitting at, I know where you are, and I know what I'm writing on the Post-it.
Yeah.
In the middle of writing on it.
And being able to tap into that would be interesting. Being able to actually have the ability to consciously pull up that memory or that ability, would be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I had another experience in a past job of opening a certain folder, seeing certain things, certain names, and I said something, I looked at this before, and they're like, no, this is brand new, and I started like, oh, this is deja vu.
Yeah. I used to get deja vu quite a bit. Not so much anymore, but I do have those. I don't get that feeling. There's that feeling that comes along with it, and I don't know. I don't get that feeling too much. Occasionally, it's almost a feeling of confusion a little bit.
Yeah, and I can say there's lots of times when I was a kid where it just would overwhelm me.
Yes, as a kid.
And I actually, at the time, I thought it was like the devil or something like that.
That's interesting.
Seriously, like just a few dream-type states. I think I told you about that one, but I guess I could go into a little bit again about having this scared feeling, thinking I saw shadows on the walls and things like that. Falling asleep and having a nightmare, being very scared, running to my parents' bed, laying down in my parents' bed and thinking I'm safe, fall asleep, then I have a dream where a voice tells me, like, your parents can't keep you safe from me.
Yeah.
And I see my parents die.
That's creepy.
And I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
When that happened.
That's terrifying, dude. I got the chills again because that scares me.
Yeah.
Have you ever had sleep paralysis?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I've had sleep paralysis before, or at least what is described as sleep paralysis. Although I'm skeptical of what they say about sleep paralysis. I've read all kinds of articles. They try to explain it because it goes back. It goes back, probably hundreds of years. People, so I have this experience that I've had for years and years and years that I call the presence.
Yeah.
I wake up in the middle of the night and I have this overwhelming feeling that there is something, someone in my room watching me. And I am overwhelmed with fear. I can't move. No, it's not that I can't move. Here's where I want to clarify. It's not that I can't move. It's that I refuse to move because I am basically playing dead. I'm staying completely still. I'm awake. I know I'm awake. There's been points where I've had to pee so bad, but I'm pretending to be asleep because I don't want to get up because I have that overwhelming feeling of someone watching me. And people have had this sleep paralysis, so they call it, where they wake up and they panic because they can't move. They're paralyzed. They can open their eyes and see, but they can't move their arms or get up or do anything, and so they panic. And some people feel that presence that I'm talking about, but also see it.
Yeah.
They see a shadowy figure hovering over them. Or I've seen artistic renditions of this, paintings from back in the day, of like a girl in bed sleeping and there's a demon on her chest with glowing red eyes, and that is a depiction of sleep paralysis because they see these demons.
Yeah.
And people just blame it on it's sleep paralysis. You're basically, your body shuts down when you're in REM sleep, so that your arms and your legs don't flail about acting out your dreams.
Yeah, well, I have experience, I think, about that explanation, to where I wake up and I'm super thirsty, but the kitchen feels like it's miles away.
Yeah.
Like that, I would say that's like a rational, air quotes, person is explaining his sleep paralysis.
Right.
I have that experience, and I never at all have like the feeling of I'm paralyzed, there's a demon there.
Really?
No, it's more like I'm so lazy because I'm in the middle of sleep that the kitchen feels like it's miles away to get a drink of water, even though I'm super thirsty.
Even though it's just like 10 steps away
10
from
steps
you.
away, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would say I have that version definitely, but never any presence, demon, anything like that. And I think that's just more sleep related to me in my mind, rather than something else going on.
Right. Well, I can tell you that I've had that whole fear thing, and it's been going on for like 10 or 15 years, where I wake up, I'm scared that something's in my room, and sometimes I wonder, is it like aliens, or is it a demon? Am I just being stupid?
Yeah.
But it's overwhelming. It's like immediate. I wake up, and I'm like, there's somebody in my room watching me, and I can't move because I don't want to see what it is. And I've even I remember one time I went through this period where I was sleeping on my couch. I slept on my couch for like a year straight, and I woke up, had that feeling, my eyes were closed, but it was almost like I could see through my eyelids. I could see my the layout of my apartment where I was living at the time, and I could see this shadowy figure walking towards me. It looked like a person, like the shape of a person, but it was just shadowy.
Yeah.
And it kind of walked over to me, and it kind of got right up in my face. And then I think I said something like in my head. I was like, "Just go away" or something, and it went and it left. And again, I'm getting the chills because it's scaring me to think about it. But it's kind of creepy. It's like, what is that?
Yeah, and I think you said, because I think I've asked you before, like, would you be interested in putting a camera up? But you're afraid even of knowing.
I'm afraid of what it's going to catch.
Yeah.
Like, what if there is something coming into... What if I put up that camera, and then the next day I watch it, and there's a little gray alien walking up and looking at me while I'm sleeping?
Or like a black mass.
Or just a... Dude, I would not be able to sleep ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do have those experiences, but they're not... They're more like middle of the night, sitting there looking into darkness, and like, I don't want to know what's in that darkness type of feeling. But I don't have that like hostile attacking me. I had that dream, like I used to have that as a kid, and like that dream that I just described came out of a period of time where that was happening to me a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
And I even saw shapes on the walls that looked like monsters.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Well, I remember as a kid, I would every once in a while open my eyes at night, and I would see a dark, shadowy figure going up to a corner of the room and then shooting across to the other corner of the room. And I specifically remember seeing this while I was spending the night at my friend's house. And I was freaked out about it. When I told him about it the next day, he was like, "It was the cat." And I was like, "There's no way that was the cat. The cat doesn't run on the ceiling."
Yeah, and I don't know if I told you about this experience, but I did have an experience where middle of the night, probably a little bit older, maybe more like 9, 10 age, to where I used to have this comic book, but it's a comic book of the Bible. And it's like the size of the Bible, and it's like Noah and Moses stories in comic book form. And I used to read that a lot as I was falling asleep. And I had a night where I kind of fell asleep holding that, and I woke up, and I swear I heard guys walking around outside. And then I started having this thing of like that book was being pulled away. And I started holding onto it, and almost playing tug of war with nothing.
Wow.
And I remember calling my like freaking out and calling for my parents, and my dad, and it just completely stopped. My parents came in. My dad looked around and was like, "Oh, it's nothing." I just accepted it as nothing because the dad said it was nothing. But still, that experience of feeling like I was pulling tug of war to hold on to that book,
right?
And something was trying to pull out of my hands.
Yeah. So I was mentioning earlier about the astral projection thing, kind of basically out of body experience.
Yeah.
This has a lot to do with dreams because at some point, it almost feels like a lucid dream. but it's like one step beyond a lucid dream.
Yeah.
In a lucid dream, you kind of know you're dreaming. You have the ability to kind of change things. But I've had a few lucid dreams, where I've like been sitting in a room, and I looked at the wall, and it was a white wall, and I was like, what if that wall was green? Yeah. And the wall would just go, and it turns green, kind of thing. But the astral projection, it's almost like you're freeing yourself from the dream world. Yeah. And the one main experience I had, it was obvious to me. I was so clear that I was going beyond dreaming in this instance. It felt like my astral body was separating from my physical body, and I was walking around, or flying around. Yeah. And I've always had a problem getting back to that point because of the fear, and I always have the fear of that presence. Oh. Like it's waiting for me. Uh-huh. And that's kind of like has been a block for me since I first started doing the astral projection stuff. Yeah. Back when I was like 18 or 19 years old is when I started doing it. Yeah. But I always got that fear afterwards. Mm-hmm. For some reason. Did I unlock some kind of door? Yeah. Is this presence, is it really a good guy? Like, is it my freaking guardian angel or something?
Yeah. And so you had an experience where basically you felt in control of the dream consciously, right?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, because I've gotten to a point where I feel like I was on the verge, and I go, oh, I'm dreaming, and wake up.
You wake up immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of happens to me now. Uh-huh. Usually when I realize I'm dreaming, it almost just clicks, and I wake up.
Yeah.
And I know that there's things you can do, like if you're really interested in having these lucid dreams and doing it and having them more often. Yeah. You can do things in waking life that trigger you in your dreams to realize you're dreaming.
Yeah, and I heard it's like a habit of, like, say if you walk through a room, touch the doorknob in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I guess, like, if you're dreaming, it won't happen the same way if you make a habit of doing it that way.
Yeah, or just doing something regularly and and asking the question, am I dreaming?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, like when you're walking down the street and you see a car drive by, you go, am I dreaming?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not,
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard that you got to kind of do some exercises awake to get to where you'll stay asleep.
Yeah, you have to train your brain to not only trigger the fact that you're dreaming, but then to stay sleeping and control it.
Interesting. Do you ever have the dreams where you feel like you're either being told or you're telling yourself, like a fable or a parable or kind of a cryptic message?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have crazy dreams.
Yeah.
And I can't pull any out of my hat right now. Uh-huh. But I do have some crazy dreams, and I oftentimes feel like there's some kind of message there or something.
Yeah, I've had that a lot, and I still will sometimes remember those and try to think, like, what was the message of that?
Yeah.
And I even had one where I wrote it all down, like, all the next day. It bugged me so much because of my dream. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it wasn't a super fascinating one. I might have told it before, but it was almost like a Planet of the Apes type of beginning, where I was in the woods, and then something started chasing me. And then I fell into a river. The river swept me away, and then those people chasing me caught me, along with, and there's other people running with me. Mm-hmm. And all these people got caught that fell in the river.
Yeah.
And taken to, like, this really cement-looking compound, and we were almost like a prison-like thing. And then it was like all these rooms were like classes.
Yeah.
And, like, you're going to learn from these different classes. And I went and opened the door to different ones, and there's different classes going on. And it was all these society almost types of things of, like, you're going to turn out to be this type of person.
Yeah.
In this room, you're going to turn out to be this type of person. And then me kind of running away, being chased, and then meeting somebody else. And I always felt like that other person was a girl. And then all of a sudden, somebody's running into an old man. It said, these walls are illusion, you can run right through them. And we just run right through the wall and escape.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so what did you think that dream meant?
I've almost thought, like the whole thing of, there's certain people, what's expected of you compared to what you really should be is kind of what I thought.
Yeah.
it kind of meant it being like a prison, that an illusion of a prison that you could have left any time.
Right. Yeah. It felt like a prison, but it wasn't really, because you had the power to escape.
Yeah.
At any time. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're talking about it, I do remember one dream, and this ties into the presence.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this dream once where I was in this big open field,
Mm-hmm.
like a cornfield or something. There was this great big open field, and there was this up this driveway that kind of went up a hill. There was a house, big house, overlooking this cornfield. I probably told you this before. And down at the bottom of the little road that went up to the house was this. In the cornfield was this cave.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like a really short cave that went in one and out the other side. But I walked into this cave, and it was very colorful. It was like yellows and reds, and it was like everything was made out of colorful clay that had been shaped and dried, and glass and crystal. It was very bright and shiny. I remember, and about halfway into this cave, carved out of this, very colorful clay, was the head of an alien. And it was basically, like your typical gray alien head. It was almost like it was, embossed or whatever, however you say that, embossed. How do you say that? It was raised up.
Yeah. Bumpy.
It was bumpy. It was, it was almost like a carving.
Yeah.
Like I was in a, like a tomb or something, I don't know. And so I walk through that cave, and then I think I go out the other side, and I go up into the house. And right when I walk into the house, I get the feeling of the presence.
Oh.
And the presence is there. And in my dream, I'm in this great big house, and I walk in the front door, and I'm in the middle of the house. It's this great big, like, this grand entrance. In both directions, there's doors that open up, and I can go either way. And that's just going to lead me to another room that'll have another door. And the whole way I'm in there, and I'm walking through door to door, going room to room, and the whole time there's this invisible presence there. I know it's there, and I'm scared of it, and it's following me wherever I go. And that's the feeling that I get. And when I woke up from that dream, I also had the presence in waking life, felt it. But I get the presence a lot in dreams, and it's always in that same kind of scenario where I walk into a house, an old house that has a lot of rooms, and I always feel like the presence is there watching me.
You know what's crazy? The other night I watched a YouTube video. It was about Oculus Rift. There's a program on Oculus Rift that sounds so much like that.
Really?
Oh, where you're walking around a mansion and there's a presence like following you.
Whoa.
Yeah, I bet you if you went through that experience, you'd be like you're trapped in one of those dreams.
Dude, I would probably be freaked out. Like, again, scaring myself just telling you the dream.
Yeah, well, you can imagine programs with basically goggles everywhere you look, and it's a creepy mansion. Something following you around.
I wonder if my dream was, if my dreams that I'm having about this is a premonition of the future.
Of like you playing Oculus Rift?
Of me being, isn't Oculus Rift, is it a game? Or is it just
I think it's kind of an experience.
It's an experience of going into...
The people that they had the Oculus Rift on, they had like an Xbox-style controller, and they're just kind of controlling themselves walking around, but it didn't really sound like there's a way to like win the game. You just walk around.
You're just experiencing this alternate reality.
Yeah,
right?
Being in a scary mansion.
Yeah.
And it'd be like you'd be walking around, all of a sudden the furniture would start to float.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do they call that? It's virtual reality. Virtual reality, yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point, I think, to where that's going to be the next step in like entertainment.
Yeah, and then you start going to that whole thing of like our dreams. A hint at
right now we are in
something
virtual
like
reality.
Are we in the Matrix?
Right.
Are we bodies plugged into a computer program? And we'll wake up someday, and that's death.
Yeah. Right. Weird.
Yeah.
Well, and that's death, but what is death? Death is just waking up
from being trapped in this game.
Right.
And dreams are like a moment where you're like, where you like take a time out from the game, pause.
Yeah.
You get up, take a drink of water, stuff, then lay down again. You're in the game again.
Yeah, that's mind blowing right there.
It is.
I think that's a topic for another for another podcast.
It is.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think we did enough on dreams?
Oh, we did quite a bit.
I think we did.
Yeah, I think we talked about a lot of them.
Yeah. Should we move on to our final segment?
Sure. Was it Tusk?
Tusk.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to review.
What's this segment called? Like
It's media review.
Media review. Yes.
Yeah, this is the media review segment.
And so, do we have kind of Tusk and maybe some about the Star Wars trailer? If we have time, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was, or the Star Wars comic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we
Yep.
both read the Star Wars comic.
We both read that. Do you want to start on Tusk?
Sure. I was kind of excited to see this kind of mixed feelings because I think we're both Kevin Smith fans for a long time.
Right, for sure.
But back from the Clerks days, and he's taking this different direction, kind of Red State, now this movie. And you could see that he's learning some directorial craft.
Uh-huh.
To where in the past he used to be, I think he was a very good writer, but he's just like, he kind of put the camera there as a director and just let his writing make the movie.
Right. And he admits this. Like, that was his directing technique. Set up the camera, point it at the actors, now talk.
Yeah. And in the past, his dialogue was very snappy, and people would talk over each other, fast-paced. But now he's gone to where he's actually having visual moments of like no talking in his movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're used to like the Kevin Smith pace, it's not really there.
Yeah.
I think Red State and Tusk.
Right.
But I think there is something with this movie. So one thing that I thought about later that's kind of really creepy and is that he came up with this horror movie. Well, he's kind of giggling on a podcast, and he's like laughing through the parts of the movie that he's thinking up. They're supposed to be like, that came across as the real serious parts of the movie.
Right.
And so you're watching it going, is this a joke or is it serious?
Uh-huh.
And I think that's a lot of critic reviews that I read said that he couldn't make up his mind. Like, is it a comedy?
Yeah, I read those reviews as well. Yeah.
And I think, to an extent, I think the critics just didn't get it. I think when it doesn't fit into a genre that they're used to or something like that, sometimes they don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a movie like, I think we talked about this, why a movie like 23 got horrible reviews.
Yeah.
Because they're used to seeing Jim Carrey as a comedian, they see him being totally serious, they don't get it.
Right. And obviously it's something different. There's a twist, or it's something that's just off the charts, not something you see every day. You know what, to be honest, so I didn't even know, just to take a step back, so yeah, I am a huge Kevin Smith fan. Mm-hmm. I like most of his movies, even though the production value wasn't there, even though it wasn't like a directorial genius in the way he moved the camera or anything like that. But yeah, his scripts are funny. The people that he got to act, I think, portrayed those parts the way that he envisioned them and did a good job. I wasn't even aware that he made Red State when he made it. I kind of stepped away for maybe a few years of what Kevin Smith was doing.
Yeah.
And when I found Red State on Netflix, I was like, this isn't my Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
When I started watching the movie. And then
I did the same thing. I saw Kevin Smith and thought it was somebody else.
Yeah, I thought it was a different Kevin Smith. And so I watched that, and I was very impressed by what he had done, because I mean, you could watch Clerks 2, Jay and Silent Bob, Dogma. I mean, all of his classic Mallrats, Chasing Amy. They all have a Kevin Smith feel to them. And when I started watching this movie, I was like, I've been thrown into a different world.
Yeah.
And it was creepy, and the topic I thought was pretty good for Red State.
Yeah.
So anyways, just on that topic, of him doing something different, I thought he did a pretty good job of doing Red State. Tusk, on the other hand, the concept was interesting. Mm-hmm. I thought that it fell short. I felt like he didn't spend enough time building up. It was almost like he had this idea that he got from doing his podcast, and it was this really, basically the whole idea was he was going to turn a guy into a walrus. And that's all he did. He didn't really put enough of a story, enough of a struggle into it. Like, who is your main character in that? Because you get Justin Long for a very short amount of time before he's basically turned into a walrus.
Then you get the Haley Joel Osment and the Genesis Rodriguez characters. But you're not made that sympathetic of them, because it's kind of implied that they're having an affair behind Justin Long's back.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I didn't understand either, because you kind of think that They are, but then you think, no, he's just like the confidant kind of friend.
Yeah.
And that he's the real jerk.
Yeah, but then like Justin Long implies that he's having affairs all over the place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so none of these characters do I feel like I'm going on a ride with.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like it just jumps around, and there's almost no point to each part of it. It was really the point of the movie was all about the shock of, the shock and gruesomeness of this guy getting turned into a walrus, and that was basically it.
Yeah, and I almost think it did need that beginning to end narrative person.
Yeah.
It's like Justin Long to here, Haley Joel Osment, Jess Rodriguez to here, and then like the Johnny Depp kind of distraction. I kind of thought in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. And then it jumps to this Johnny Depp character, who he did a fine job. I think all of the acting was fine. I think what we missed in this was a true story. It didn't.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to say like the directing I thought was great, like the artistic views.
Yeah.
The conversation with Justin Long and the older, I'm spacing on the actor's name.
Right, Michael Parks.
Michael Parks, when he gave him the wine or the tea, and they're sitting there, I thought that was really well shot and everything, and how he went from that scene to the flashback of him and Janice Rodriguez together. I thought just that whole section was really done well from a directorial point. It was kind of interesting to say in a Kevin Smith movie that the weak part was the writing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The storytelling. There wasn't a story.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. And I think it sounds to me like he threw this movie together very, very quickly.
Yeah. And if you listen to the podcast and watch the movie, he stuck to the podcast very closely.
Yeah. It was almost exactly what he says, except for kind of throwing in that Haley Joel Osment and the Genesis Rodriguez characters. He kind of throws them in there to kind of, drive the story a little bit after he gets abducted or whatever. But I think it could have been better. I was really excited about this movie too. I really wanted to see it. I was really disappointed when it didn't get released in the theaters.
Yeah. And
I had to wait for it to come out on video on demand.
Yeah.
So.
But I'd say it's a good movie. But it's kind of like when a great filmmaker makes one of his lesser movies.
Right.
It's kind of what you're talking about here. It's kind of like, say what was it? The Coen brothers made No Country for Old Men. Then they made Burn After Reading. And Burn After Reading got really criticized. But it's just it's still a good movie made by great filmmakers. It's just not their best one.
It doesn't meet the criteria that we've come to expect.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciate that Kevin Smith is taking these leaps and trying to make something different and trying to veer off from what we've come to know him, from the Clerks days and the Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah. How do you feel about him making Clerks 3 now after you've seen this movie?
I am excited about it.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie will affect Clerks at all. I think for him at this point, making a Clerks type of movie is almost like second nature.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is what if he got so into what he's learned as a director that he has those silent artistic moments in a Clerks 3? Would that work?
I mean, I don't know. Can we think back to Clerks 1 and 2? Did he do those moments then?
Well, he had the what do you call them? The montage moments where it shows him making coffee and stuff in the store.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I can't think of a moment where you're letting the picture do the talking and the character's not talking.
Right.
Kind of like he did in Tusk.
Yeah. I just don't think he would go that direction because Clerks is a talky movie.
It is, and just when you have characters like Randall and Jay in the same movie, just two really talky guys, it seems like you'd be missing the mark if you didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Have it be that way.
I'm you know what? I keep an open mind and an optimistic mind when it comes to looking forward to things like that. So I'm not going to judge Kevin Smith's entire movie making portfolio based on Tusk just because I didn't really dig Tusk that much. Just like I'm not going to judge him on what was the Ben Affleck and J-Lo movie.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even remember the name
Jersey
of it. Jersey
Girl?
Girl.
Yeah.
Never even saw the movie myself. I couldn't bring myself to see it because I didn't want to.
Yeah, I saw it. You could tell, at the end of the movie, he had the whole thing, the tribute to his dad. You could tell it came from a period of time where he wasn't that happy.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of... you felt unpleasant watching the movie. Jennifer Lopez dies right at the beginning.
Right.
Spoiler
alert.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's real spoiler. It happens right at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
It's more like J-Lo's a cameo, and
Yeah.
it's really Liv Tyler is the main character.
Right. And Ben Affleck, right? Ben Affleck's really the main character.
Yeah, Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler.
I know I've seen parts of it, but I've never actually sat down and said, I want to watch this movie.
Yeah, and it is entertaining, and it is kind of like in a bad place finding something good type of movie. But it didn't have it. I mean, especially say like, he had George Carlin in the movie.
Yeah.
He just didn't have very many funny lines for George Carlin to say.
Right, because he was playing more of a serious role, right?
Yeah,
he was the dad.
He was the guy telling Ben Affleck that you got to take control of your kid.
He was the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, he basically was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Kevin Smith writing George Carlin in the movie. Nothing funny happened.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that he didn't have a chance to really give him a good role. Although he was the Cardinal in Dogma, right?
Dogma, and he was in the Hitchhiker.
Oh, yeah, Hitchhiker and Jay and Silent Bob. I know that they had plans to make a movie together. He was going to make. I think I heard him or read something that he was going to make a movie about pedophile priests.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
with George Carlin.
George Carlin was going to be the priest or whatever. Like they had an idea that they were working on or something.
Yeah, it seems like he gets idea because I on IMDb for a while they were talking about a movie that was like announced that Kevin Smith was going to write, but it was about a rapturing Jesus is rampaging the earth, and these guys that try
the
to
Krampus.
save the Krampus. Yeah.
Did he not? Is he not doing the Krampus?
Well,
now?
I haven't heard anything about it, but now he's talking about the trilogy, like the Moose Jaws and the Yoga Hosers. But I don't know if that's been put in the back burner.
Maybe it has. Yeah, because you're right.
It was actually on IMDb for a while.
Yeah, I remember seeing those, and he was going to be working with some other directors, right? It was like a group effort, kind of like a Four Rooms kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Where multiple directors and writers were going to be doing their parts, and he was going to be doing like part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever part. Yeah, that's what I had read.
And seeing Tusk and Red State, I think Kevin Smith might be ready to do that big superhero movie.
You think so?
I think because he's talked about how he was one of the original writers for the Green Hornet. And he's kind of been approached for ideas. It wasn't like he was one of the writers for that Nicolas Cage Superman.
Yeah, he wrote the script. You can actually find his script online and read it.
And it seems like he's a comic book guy.
He's a huge comic book guy.
And like with what he's done in Red State and Tusk, I think, and his writing ability, I think he's ready to do that superhero movie.
Unfortunately, the way that things work in Hollywood, because he hasn't been the blockbuster guy, they're not going to give him that kind of money. They're not going to give him that kind of project to work on.
No, and that's the thing. They're not going to give him the $100 million.
Yeah, so he's got to do it on his own.
Yeah, but it might be funny to see him do the low budget one.
Yeah, but then he'd have to get his. I mean, what would he do?
Oh,
like a big comic book name, or would he just like dig deep into the trenches of comic books?
Well, it'd be funny to see him do an obscure one.
Yeah,
just make a low budget movie.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a comic book nerd enough to know.
Me neither.
The obscure ones that they have, because they're even doing Ant-Man and Black Panther movies now.
Right. Yeah.
Mainstream. So they're really digging deep. And did you see they announced who Andy Serkis is going to be?
No.
He's the villain from the Black Panther movies or comics.
Oh, so that's who he's going to be in the Age of Ultron.
Yeah, and I guess the whole storyline behind the Black Panther was they had. I forget which metal it is. It's either the metal that's in Wolverine or the metal that's in Captain America's shield. Is in this area in Africa that's controlled by the Black Panther.
Oh.
And the villain is trying to steal it all.
Oh.
And so I almost think that they might have a sub-storyline of Ultron's going to get that metal to make himself out of it.
Oh, really?
And Andy Serkis' character is going to be the guy that helps him do it. Which might mean they introduce the Black Panther.
Are you going to go see Age of Ultron when it comes out?
I want to.
Yeah.
Especially if it's going to have a Star Wars preview.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I want to see is the Star Wars trailer.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Is that our podcast for the day? That's the pilot episode.
It is the pilot episode. Did we time this at all?
Well, the recording timed it, and I can tell you how long it is. It's probably pretty long.
It probably is.
Let's see. 1 hour and 40 minutes almost. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Well, I guess until next time.
Until next time.